Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. The meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. The meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North Third Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, June 26, 2024, and the time is 9 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Roussel,
Here.
Commissioner Leone,
Here.
Commissioner Romick,
Here.
Commissioner Guidry,
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Here.
5 present and a quorum.
Okay, since we have no old business and no minutes to approve, we're going to move over to item 5 on the agenda, consideration of change orders.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 764 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 743, place 18 in pending status, and denied 3. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve 743 change orders and place 18 in pending status and deny 3 for reasons given by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 20 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve all 20. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve all 20 prior pending change orders reviewed and approved by staff.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Consideration of tax sale cancellation.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have 1 tax sale cancellation in Washington Parish due to being erroneously sold. Staff requests approval of 1 tax sale cancellation.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 1 tax sale cancellation.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Next item on the agenda is the consideration of a resolution for limited delegation of appointing authority and a contract for legal services. Any questions by the commission on it? We've all been briefed. Hearing none, may I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the resolution for limited delegation of appointing authority, the contract for legal services for 2024-25 state fiscal year.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted. That property? I don't think Assessor Gabe is here, but we have some gentlemen here to do it.
Chairman, Gabe's on his way. He's running behind, so we will go on with. That or we can go ahead and move forward. He said to just give his apologies. Okay. Can we go ahead? Yes, sir.
If y'all don't mind, identify yourselves and then we'll get.
Yes, sir. My name is Darren Fredrickson. All right, let's do it. I like it. Darren Fredrickson with Merit Advisors, representing LOGA, Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. We appreciate the opportunity to share some of this history with you. I know the document we created, you guys have got a copy of, so I won't read through it. Just for my part, the work on this, for my part, started in 1992. This was something we worked on for decades. Chapter 9 was one of those issues that every year we'd come in to see the commissioners and it'd be like, okay, we all knew Chapter 9 was coming. The differences, as we have pointed out in here, were we felt like they were founded in the Constitution, and we ultimately worked to resolve that. It was one of those things that for a lot of us for a long time, it was a very heavy issue. Once we all got together at the behest of Chairman Shahardy and started moving the ball, we overcame a lot, worked together, and have put something together that I'm personally very proud of. It resolves a lot of things. It's like anything else. We work on tweaks. We work together. Industry and the assessors, I think we have kind of done something at a scale no one else has ever done before. And you'll see in July that we will just be bringing you another set of, here's the few things we need to do to make it work. So I think overall, what we've put together is good for Louisiana, it's good for the assessors, it's good for industry. And you guys will never have some of those experiences that we all shared for a long time in those heated discussions. So I won't bore you with anything else, but if you've got any questions about anything that's in here or would like a little more to go through after Rodney talks, then we will help you guys along with anything.
Thanks, Darren. My name is Rodney Corrett. I'm with Pritchard and Abbott, a consulting firm out of Texas that represents the government side of the table in lots of different states for property tax matters only. That's what we do. We're property tax evaluation and consulting firm. Darren did a good job, a really good job on that 3-page write-up of the history, something we had never, I guess, thought about putting together before. But he did a good job, particularly of leaving out some things and not memorializing some of that in writing that was something that we can all have fond memories of, but don't have to actually put in a document. Like Darren said, this is a big change to value oil and gas wells in a completely different methodology. Instead of looking at the cost, we're looking at the income and specifically income potential. Income is always, an income approach is always about what income the property would, could, should be able to produce for the owner of that property, which should be reflected in the marketplace of willing buyers, willing sellers. We have done, I think, a really good job of making it simple. It's not simple. It's a complicated thing in the actual details, but it is simple in its overall concept. But the details are always where the devil is. So we do have a continuously evolving profession. Appraisal is never a set thing. We will keep working to make it better for all parties. And hopefully for you all too, if you ever have to hear appeals for one thing, but also just going through the rules and regulations process, it won't change a lot every year. Hopefully it changes very little.
Price should
through
be the
years.
continual change.
Right. And we look forward to working on this together and with you all also in this process, because you all are you're the word. You tell us what to do, even though we're coming here with these proposals. It's certainly within your purview to make changes as you see necessary for the state of Louisiana to go forward. I appreciate your time. Any questions? I'm here all day.
Thank you. And look, no doubt we'll have questions as we go along. We're all new, we're all still learning, but we appreciate y'all coming here and kind of giving us some insight to it, and looking forward to working with y'all as we move forward for the betterment of the state.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a consideration of a refund request for taxes paid in error in Orleans Parish.
Good morning. My name's Elaine Hardin. I represent the interest of the claimants in this action. That's for docket number R 2024-001 and R 2024-002. Okay. Normally, I understand the tax commission considers correctness of assessment. In this particular case, involves a challenge to the legality of a penalty that was assessed by the Parish of Orleans for the late payment of property taxes. As it turns out, the legality challenge was valid. The Louisiana Supreme Court has actually ruled that the penalty that was imposed was unconstitutional. My folks, that is Cynthia Green and James Green in the 002 docket, and Patrice Ben Abbey and Orlando Smiley in the 001 docket, had paid penalties, but while the case was pending on the legality challenge, actually filed suit, paid under protest and filed suit within 30 days, which in and of itself is a challenge. As it turns out, Louisiana Supreme Court has stated, ruled it unconstitutional. My clients were then entitled to a summary judgment holding that the penalties that they paid had to be returned to them. They went through the entire proceedings in the Civil District Court for the Parish of Orleans. There was a judgment rendered in their favor. It not only includes the amount of the penalties that were paid for the late payment of the property taxes, but also for court cost and legal interest from date of judicial demand. The Louisiana Tax Commission under 47:2132, Section A2, small a, has the authority to order the repayment of the statutory imposition along with what the court has ordered in terms of court cost and legal interest. So what we are seeking today in both dockets is an order from this court. And the bottom line of it is the city of New Orleans failed to pay the judgment, has not said why they don't pay the judgment. I can't speculate on why, but I respectfully submit, given that the legislature has given the statutory authority to the Louisiana Tax Commission to order repayment, that the city of New Orleans will have to adhere to that order. The amounts are not large. They are actually quite small, and in both situations, the court costs exceed the amount of the penalties that were paid. So what I would like to do is answer any questions I had set out in the exhibits, which I would like to offer and attach to the record. And I think they're already in the record, but I also have a set here. And that's those items that are listed on the exhibits form that I have in front of me, and it was submitted before. So if you would like me to go through it, I can. If you want me to give any other background information on this particular cases, I'm here to do so. Whatever the commission would like, I'll be glad to do. You need any further background information on the particular items?
I think we have just a couple of questions from Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, I just came to the table to answer any questions. You know,
I assume that-
ordinarily,
This is standard procedure for the commission. The court ruled that the credit should be refunded, so we're just approving like we normally do.
correct. And this one's only different because it's not the taxes that were paid in error. It's the specific penalties and court fees and interest and things like that, which 2132 specifically contemplates that you all have the authority to do. It's a little different than the one that you approved a few weeks ago, because that one dealt with taxes paid in error. This deals with the penalties and interest on a successful legality challenge that the taxpayer brought. But certainly within your authority to approve the request.
Any questions from the commission on this?
Mr. Chair, just for Mr. Hoffman, you have reviewed everything. Everything is in order in your mind, and this gentleman did not have to present under oath.
Yes, that's correct, Commissioner Romig. So Mr. Harden is an attorney that represents the taxpayers. We typically do not swear in attorneys to testify. I have reviewed the documentation. The assessor has advised that he takes no position, so there's not an impediment there. And otherwise, this meets the criteria under 2132, big A to little a, that after a successful legality challenge, the taxpayer can petition the commission to approve a refund request for the penalties, the interest, and the court costs.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the commission? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the refund request.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Moving on to the appeals section of the agenda.
Good morning. If you'll be testifying at any of the hearings today, I'll ask you to stand up. I'm going to administer an oath to all of you at the same time. So if you have an appeal on the docket, you'll be testifying. Please stand up. So I'll have you raise your right hand. I'm going to administer an oath, and then I'm going to indicate to you individually to affirm the oaths and to state I do, and state your name. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Russell Alvarez, I do.
Thank you. Thank you.
David Mejia, I do.
User Ali, I do.
Hispana Ali, I do. Yeah, that's
Thank you. Y'all may have a seat. That's you, the appraisers. Appraisers, if you will unmute and raise your right hand, I will administer an oath and then ask you individually to affirm the oath. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Marquet?
I do.
Joshua?
I do.
George?
I do.
Danny?
I do.
Nicole?
I do.
And Mark?
I do.
Thank you.
The first appeal we'll take up today is the appeal of Ali Jazar versus Assessor Earl G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76264. Mr. Ali, you can start first.
Good morning. My name is Juzar Ali. With your kind permission, I'm here with my wife, Isfana Ali. We both are retirees, have worked with the LSU School of Medicine in the LSU system, but have retired. It is my distinct honor and pleasure that I'm here, and I'm thankful to this board to allow me to be here. Thank you very much. I'm also thankful and recognize the work that has been done by the Tax Commission appraiser, Mr. Joshua, and I fully respect his work, although I totally disagree with him. The first point I want to make about my case is that the total fair market value of my property was $289,000 has now been increased to $504,000. In this context, I'm appealing for a reconsideration. The first point in that is what was prepared by Mr. Joshua, and he was kind enough to do an appraisal and gave us some comparisons. My contention is that those comparisons are not applicable because they are in a zone of a geographic zone which are outside my zone. So to give you some examples, when we look at the property documents, and there are some geographic zones that are over there, my property is outside that zone. So if you were to see this zone, this is the zone that he has looked at. My property is way outside. All of the three properties that have been mentioned by him as a comparison are outside my zone. The second point is that they are not comparable because of the various streets that they are on. And as you very well know, in New Orleans, every block is very different and every house is very different. And at the same time, the areas are very different. So in my respectful, humble opinion, the comparison that he has been based, his assessment is inaccurate and not applicable to my case. What I've also done is, the second point is that I have looked at the geographic zone that was assigned to my property. And this is the geographic zone that has been assigned to my property, and my property is in the center of that. In that area, I did my own personal search and came up with the comparisons, and all the properties within that zone are much lower than what my property has been assessed, sir. If you look at all the properties in that, they have been at a range which are much lower. So in that context, my property should be assessed with the same as the other properties within this whole geographic zone. What I would like to also point out that in New Orleans especially, if you go from one block to the other, the areas change. Where I live, which I've been living for 32 years, and I know every brick of that area, is that beyond Wormsley, there's a whole different zone. Beyond Dart and beyond Earhart, there is a totally different zone. And so none of these properties are can be compared by that way. So we really need to look at what we have inside that particular zone and how. And so here I brought all the things for you to look at if you can, but all the 6 or 7 properties within my zone are taxed are assessed at a much lower value than what this has been done. The next question is that each house is different, and it is my impression that this was probably done as a global thing. Each house inside is different, so there's no way you can assess how the property is. The next point is that the resale value of which the property tax is based on, sir, is based on the resale. In our block, there are about 5 houses for the last 3 years that have been on the market and have not been sold, sir. There are 4 reasons in this area that the properties are not sold. Their values are very low. The infrastructure of the city, the taxes, the insurance, and the structure. Our house in 2022 and 2023, the whole street was dug for 3 years, for 2 years, and we had to take our trash about 5 blocks or 6 blocks away just to put our trash out. So the whole area has been like that, and in my opinion, this all reflects the resale value of the property. The next point is that the insurance value of this property also assessed by the insurance is over here, and my insurance value is also much less than what has been assessed. So in my respectful opinion, with due respect to the appraiser, his assessment is incorrect. His assessment is way above the line and does not reflect the true value of my property.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. The property was originally valued at $504,500 using the mass appraisal CAMA system. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. The commission did an appraisal at $550, which is higher than the Board of Review's value. We called the taxpayer to see if he would withdraw. He would not withdraw. So we performed a fee simple appraisal on the property. Our fee simple appraisal came in at $541,000, which is right in the ballpark of the $550 by staff. Called the taxpayer again to see if he would withdraw. He would not. We have not been able to verify any documentation from the taxpayer. We have not received any exhibits from the taxpayer. Just to speak to the appraisal performed by the staff and our appraisal. Yes, the appraisal performed by staff is in different neighborhoods. However, the appraisal performed by the assessor's office is 1 block away. So the subject is 4210 Vincennes. 3 comps in the Orleans Parish appraisal is 4100 block of Vincennes, just the next block over. They're selling for $699, $675, and $580. When you do the adjustments, the fair market value came in at $541. We're just asking the commission to affirm the Board of Review's value at $504, $500, even though both appraisals show that the property should be valued more.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, good morning, Joshua Laverne, LTC appraiser. I inspected and appraised the property located at 4210 Vincennes Place, utilizing the sales comparison approach. That approach produced a value of $550,000 with $58,100 attributed to the land and $491,900 attributed to the improvement. I would just like to touch on, location is one of the attributes that we look for when we arrive at value, but it's only one of 5. We look at others. Ideally, we'd like to stay as close as we can to the subject, but sometimes you have to venture out further to find good comps.
Thank you.
welcome.
Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the taxpayer. That road work is now complete,
That road work is now complete.
and your location is between Walmsley and Earhart?
My location is between Grape and Earhart's, not even Walmsley's. It's beyond this side, it's between Grape and Dart's.
Thank you.
So may I? With your permission, sir. I also had another realtor look at this whole thing and assess on the value, and I have all their comparisons, and which is much lower than what the honorable appraisal have been done by the other colleagues. And as far as the jurisdiction is concerned, as I showed you in my jurisdiction map, none of these properties that were used by the appraiser are within that block. And that is a very important point in New Orleans if you look at the Midtown area, sir. If you will move away to Audubon and you compare it with Audubon Park and Audubon Place, that is not going to be applicable to me at Walmsley, at where I am near Darts. If you look at something which is on Broadway away, that's not going to be applicable. Even next door, next street, Vendome is not applicable to what I am on Vincenza. And even when he's mentioned about 4100 block and all, that's a block away. In my assessment, I have looked at a property that was, mine is 4210. I looked at exactly the same one, which is a block away, which is 4120. It's almost built the same. It almost looks like the same. And that also is very low, is lower. And if you look at all the ones that are on my block, sir, their values on public record is way lower. And in my case, sir, to increase it double is very unfair. And the methodology is very inaccurate. And I really respectfully would request that this should be considered.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question for Russell. Russell, help me understand what the taxpayer is saying when he's saying comparables are not in relation to what his property is. What is the criteria that you all look at when you look for comparables to a property that's being assessed?
Well, we want to look at something that's within 1 mile of the subject property. We want to look at something that's within plus or minus 20% gross living area of the subject property, something that's sort of in the same condition. We don't want to use a gutted property versus a new constructed property. We want to look at the any attributes applicable to that property that would be captured in another comparables. For instance, later on, we have one where property's on the parade route versus something that's not on the parade route. That would be something to consider. We use, for fee simple, it's about 5 to 8 attributes for the property. For mass appraisal, we're using a lot more because we have more sales. The rule of thumb is you want at least 8 sales per attribute to get a good mass appraisal value. Just to be honest with everybody, everything's all within 10%. The mass appraisals at 504, the tax commission's appraisal, fee simple's at 550, that's within 10%. Ours at 541, everything's within 10%. So it's kind of tight knit, and that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
So, any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, just a question for Mr. Laverne and for the Orleans Parish Assessor. Your condition of the subject property for both of you, did you rate it as average? Very
Yes,
good, excellent.
I rate it as average.
Yes, sir. I also rated it as average.
Any other questions from the commission?
So one final point. The comparisons that were made by them, my property, the square foot area of the comparison that was made was also inappropriate. So you're comparing 6,000 square feet with my thing. It's just unfair, sir.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no additional questions, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Orleans Parish assessed value, 58,100 for the land, 446,400 for the improvement, for a total of $504,500.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Wendy E. Simmons versus Assessor Earl G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-74006.
Thanks. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Hi.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
I thought this was a little more of a conversation, so I don't feel quite as prepared as the gentleman who spoke before me, but my contention is that my property taxes nearly doubled and that there was no basis for that to happen. The comps that I've provided don't support the assessment. My building is nearly 175 years old. We have decades of deferred maintenance. I've provided photos that show that the condition of the building is poor. All of the comps that I provided were from the president and founder of Reeve Real Estate. He didn't cherry pick, he provided comps for every single condo on the market during the assessment time, and none of them come close to the assessed value for my condo. I did work to my condo personally, so I put money into the interior of my condo, which I think because it was on the market at one point for a large sum of money that it never sold for, that you're seeing photos and are mistaking that the interior design of my condo gives it more value than the condo actually has on the market. There just aren't comps to support it. And the building itself is in terrible condition. We fixed the roof, and aside from that, we've done no work to the building in probably 20 or 30 years. So when the assessor came out, she was able to provide the same photos that I've been able to provide to you, where wood is peeling. I have constant work needing to be done to my roof. The roof is constantly leaking, even despite work having been done to it. It's termites, everything. There's just nonstop work that needs to be done to this building. And again, as I said, the comps don't support it. Also, my unit is the smallest in the building by at least 300 feet. It's a walk-up. My parking spaces are tandem. Everyone else has parallel spaces. So the unit itself compared to other units in the building has less value. We had one outlier during Ida, a senior citizen couple. Their house in Metairie was destroyed. They're an aged couple in their 90s, and they had to very quickly find a two-bedroom rather, that was on the ground floor that they could wheelchair out to the parking lot. And it just so happened that my neighbor was selling their unit at the height of the market, and they bought it for list the day it went on the market. And I think that skewed the value of the apartments in the building, and that's perhaps why they are basing the assessment off of that one outlier, not just for my building, but for all condos in the area. That's my case.
Thank you.
Mhm.
New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes. So the property was initially valued at $710,000. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. We have performed a fee simple appraisal of the property. The fee simple appraisal came in at $725,000, which is supportive of the original value that we have. I think the main issue that we have is there are sales to support this. Unit A sold in 21, slightly outside the lien date for $895,000. It sold again in 2023 for $860,000. It's slightly larger. It's 1,640 square feet as opposed to the penthouse, which is 1,604 square feet. So it is about 70 square foot difference. Unit C also sold in 2020 at 1,645 square feet for $670,000. I think the issue that we have mainly is that we don't feel that the tax commission's appraisal is appropriate because of conditions. They're calling it average condition. We provided in the appraisal on page 14, the remarks that we have showing photos. The property is currently listed as of September 5th, 2023 for $850,000 in excellent condition. The notes say breathtaking garden district condo located in historic Warwick Manor. This condo has been completely renovated and reimagined into a spectacular contemporary masterpiece. The full remarks are on page 14. I don't
Sorry,
want
it's not listed.
the MLS number is
not on the market.
2411822.
Ma'am, please.
Okay.
Stop,
I'm
please.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The MLS number is 2411822. We provided that in the appraisal that was provided to the commission and the taxpayer. The issue is there's 4 photos that are undated that's showing the exterior of the condo unit provided by the staff appraisal for the reduction, but they're not dated. I have 14 pages of photos that are provided from the listing of the condo itself, showing that it's in exquisite condition and not average condition. Comparable 1, there's no adjustment for the 2 private terraces that are either side of the property. The finish schedule is not the same. It's a resale. Comp number 2, it's a shotgun house style per the MLS floor plan. The subject property or the taxpayer's property is not a shotgun. You don't have to walk through one bedroom to get to another bedroom. However, comp 2 of the staff appraisal, you have to walk through a bedroom to get to the second bedroom, but there's no adjustment made for that. There's also no adjustment made for the private terraces. Comp 3, there's no adjustments made for the private terrace, and there's exposed brick walls, which is not the same finish schedule as the subject property. Taking a look at it, just the attachments provided in the listing. Like I said, it says in 2020, there was a brand new roof. 2020, there was exterior painted. In November of 19, it says literally everything is new, tore down to the studs, 600,000 plus renovation, not including furniture and IT. If you include furniture and IT, it's $750,000 for the renovation. We don't feel that a purchase of, sorry, I'm losing my steam here. We don't feel that a purchase of $495,000 in 2017, then a $750,000 renovation would warrant average condition and a $485,000 value.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser, Nicole?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nicole Singley, LTC appraiser. Per the appellant's request, I completed an exterior-only site visit and appraised the property located at 2427 Camp Street, which is Unit E. My opinion of the subject's overall condition is noted to be average, with deferred maintenance and physical deterioration taken into consideration. From the exterior, the improvements has evidence of some chip and peel and paint around wood windows, as well as sections of damaged wood on the exterior. The physical deterioration is also noted when you take, the exterior photo and you zoom in. There's a large octagonal skylight, and the unit is located on the 3rd floor. So the large skylight is actually part of that unit. Ms. Simmons had also provided exterior photos that are consistent with the photos that I obtained. She also provided photos of damage to interior wall within the unit and around interior windows from water intrusion that aligns with the deferred maintenance and physical deterioration noted to the exterior. Let's see. The sales comparison approach is the only applicable approach utilized in my analysis. The approach produced a value of $485,000 with $88,600 attributed to the land value, $396,400 to the improvement. I do want to note that, yes, the unit is in MLS history. I'm not showing it as an active listing. I'm showing it as an expired. So at some point, it could have been listed, but there is an expiration date that shows September of 2023. So I do not show in my file that it is actively listed. My comparables are less than a half mile away. Quite a unique building. It is a historical, building dated, back in time. Not as your cookie cutter type of big condo building. There's 5 units in the building, so it is a much smaller condominium building. The comps I've used range from 6 units to 8 units. Let's see here. I'm kind of looking at my report. The square footage for the building area is bracketed. I cannot speak to the assessor's appraisal. I was not given a copy to review, and this is not an appraisal review type of assignment. So when it is provided, I do take time to look at it. And also, let's see. Yeah, I think that's majorly everything that I'd like to point out. as far as the reasoning for using the comparables that I use. They're all within, the allowable date range for the effective date. And the value of opinion is bracketed by the original sale price as well as the adjusted sale price of the 3 comparable sales. So if any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions for the taxpayer. We've been provided with a letter that is your request, as I read it, for a total of 520,000. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
This was submitted by Mr. Laughlin.
I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
So your request then is what the LTC appraisal is, or what exactly is your request?
I'm so sorry. I've spoken to so many people.
That's quite all right.
I was explaining this in the other room. I've gone to the lakefront. I've gone to Delgado twice, and I've corresponded with 3 or 4 different people on email. So I wasn't even sure how this differed from all of those other hearings. So I'm so
Get that
sorry.
sorted out.
I'm
That's
not sure
okay.
how
That's okay.
I got here.
Can you confirm with the listing that did expire in September?
Yeah.
That was your
and
listing.
may I clarify one thing or a couple things that you said? So those units that sold at such a high price, as I said, that was at the top of the market. And that's why I put my house on the market, because they were selling for so much money. So I tried to take advantage of that and put my house on the market, and it wouldn't sell. And I erroneously and stupidly put a ton of money into this condo when I bought it because it was in such bad shape. And then, like a lot of people experience, the contractor was meant to spend $500,000 and things kept escalating and escalating. So I didn't go into it spending that much money. It ended up costing that much money, which I'll never get out of the house. So the fact that I put a lot of money into it is reflective of, like, when I opened up the floor, it had been completely eaten by termites and the joists were all damaged. And when we opened the wall, it had been completely eaten by termites and we had to repair the walls. So there was substantial damage that wasn't uncovered during the inspection that ended up costing me a ton more money. So when you write a marketing listing, you're trying to sell a condo. And so the condo listing is accurate and true, but it's also me trying to sell a condo when my 2 neighbors had successfully sold theirs at the top of the market. When the condo would not sell after 2 years being on the market, I took it off the market. So again, it speaks to the fact that the value that people are trying to assess it for is not an accurate reflection of what the market is willing to pay. It's not worth that much money. So the fact that my 2 neighbors were able to sell it because of particular circumstances during a particular time when the market would support it, and because 2 80 and 90-year-olds needed to buy a house when theirs was destroyed in Ida and they bought it the first day it went on the market, is an outlier. It's not reflective of reality. Also, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm so sorry about different floor plans. It's always been the floor plan. I don't know what exposed brick wall he's talking about either. And also the 2 decks are what's considered common property. They're not my decks. I have to maintain them because they are attached to mine. Our condo, as she was explaining, is a little complicated because it's 5 owners and certain things are common property, even though they're attached to my unit. So my decks aren't my decks. They're common property per our bylaws.
But you have the only utilization of those decks?
I have utilization of those and I have to take care of them, but by our bylaws, they're considered common property of the structure.
Understood, but the other units that can't gain access to that?
They can gain access to them.
Okay.
Yes. Not for like to have a party or something, but they are considered common property. But I have use of them, not the other units. But I have to pay to maintain them and everything else, but they're considered common property of the building.
Okay. Any additional questions?
I have a couple of questions. One for the taxpayer. So the property was renovated down to
No.
stuff.
Oh, my property.
Yes, your property.
Yes. When I moved in, I renovated it initially for aesthetics, but as we started to uncover things, then I had to do it for structural reasons.
And one question to Nicole for the LTC commission. You said that you were only granted exterior. So were you not allowed to go inside and take pictures?
I always offer interior, exterior, and just for this, I guess, assignment, she said exterior would be fine. I mean, I never, overly push myself in. It's to their discretion. And so if she was comfortable with exterior only, I mean, I was okay with that as well. We do it all the time,
And I'm sorry, may I?
If you were granted to the interior and took pictures, would it have changed your opinion on the condition?
Absolutely not. As long as it's consistent with the photos that were provided as well. I'd probably took the same photos because what I do is when we do interior, we don't initially go in like a traditional appraisal and do like room count photos of each room. We specifically look for the areas, that are damaged or, to anything that we need to adjust the condition. We'll specifically take pictures of those areas. So in this case, she provided, like, say, the interior photo of the damage by the window. Well, from the exterior, my photos showed that, yeah, there was definitely deferred maintenance and some issues around that window that would support water intrusion. So it's the extraordinary assumption, but based on if the window looked completely fine and there was interior photos of wall damage by the window, I'd pretty much question that. And maybe request to get inside to verify. I would not, play in that type of gray area. But because there were photos that she provided that supported those specific areas, I felt comfortable enough to use them. Basically. But yeah, we do go inside as well. I mean, it's no problem at all. We always offer to go in interior.
Any other questions from the commission?
Yeah, I want to ask a question to the taxpayer.
Sure.
Do you have a condo association that belongs with that condominium?
We don't, this is actually a very big point of contention. There's only there's only 4 owners in the building. One owner owns 2 units. And we have bylaws that were written, I don't even know how long ago. So we don't officially have a board, no. There's one owner who was the original owner of the building. So, and she has 2 units, so she overrules everybody all the time, and that's why nothing gets fixed.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I just want to say that by now, I did these renovations in 2016. So the renovations are also now aging and becoming the time when things are starting to need to get fixed again. But the pictures most recently on the listing reflect the inside. I mean, they're pretty pictures, obviously.
Okay, thank you. Russell?
That's just what I wanted to just reiterate, that there's pictures showing that it is not in average condition. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
It's a renovation that's now 2016,
ma'am.
8 years old.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you.
Okay. I'm sorry. Understand.
Any questions from the commission?
Just one more, Mr. Commissioner, that for the taxpayer, you purchased the property in what year?
2016. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion to split this decision to make it 584,700,000 on the building, which will include on a total, which will include 88,600 on land, 496,100 on the building, which totals $584,700.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any question on the motion? Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Next, we have the appeal of Janet D. Delzell Durancelet versus Assessor L.G. Williams and Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-75021.
Morning.
Good morning.
I am Janet Durancelet, formerly Dilzell. And I'm the owner of 5 Bear Creek Drive, which is the subject of the appeal before you. And I have owned this property since its construction, which was about 20 years ago. It's a single-family home that's located on the west bank of New Orleans in a section of the English Turn golf community known as the Villas. The concept of the villas, which was laid out to consist of 50 home sites, was to create an area of smaller homes within this development with very small lots. It was traditionally inhabited by lots of retirees, many of whom moved over from larger homes in the development after they downsized, as evidenced by the fact that approximately 1/3 of the single family, one-story homes have been given special assessment treatment based on the owner's age and income. The specific type of the villas homes includes painted brick exteriors within a particular color palette, the stamped concrete driveways, and a specific color roof and style. The pictures associated with the assessor's website, which is what I have relied on extensively, show the similarities of all of these homes. Although customized, the villas or basically consist of 5 models of homes. My home is a single-story model, which makes it one of the smallest within the villas and the English Turn community as a whole. In view of the similarities of construction in the villas, it would seem that the assessed building values should be within a limited range, akin to units of a condominium development based primarily on square footage. Variations in land values would be the difference, which would depend on location, so that the proximity to golf lagoons would have a greater value, and proximity to heavily trafficked entrance to the community would have a lesser value. Not only does my home back onto the heavily traveled entrance to the English Turn Country Club, backs onto Clubhouse Drive, which leads to the club as well as to the rest of the community and the golf course. It's also the only property in the villas that does not have the an 8-foot brick privacy fence, other than those homes that are located against the lagoons. In my argument for a decreased assessed value of my property, I have relied on the assessor's website, which contains complete information about all of the properties within Orleans Parish and certainly within the villas. Also on a July 2023 front page article of the Times-Picayune regarding property values in New Orleans, and on the Tax Commission's own mission statement published on its website. And those are my exhibits 1, 5, and 6, particularly relate to my argument. And I'm asking the commission to exercise its oversight in accordance with the mission statement to achieve fair, accurate, and uniform ad valorem taxation in the villas. And considering the size, which my home is the 3rd smallest, the style, the single story, and location backing onto the heavily traveled Clubhouse Drive, I believe that 5 Bear Creek Drive should be among the very lowest in assessed building and total value. Instead, my home has been valued as one of the highest at $173 a square foot, as opposed to my most similar neighbors, 1 Bear Creek Drive, 10 Bear Creek Drive, and 1 English Turn Court, who've been valued respectively at $120 a square foot, $139 a square foot, and $109 a square foot. Furthermore, there have been fairly recent sales for the 2 other Bear Creek properties, which are the ones that are proximate to the Clubhouse Drive, the heavily traveled access, that could reflect accurately reflect a fair market value, but they're not really reflected. That's not particularly reflected in the subsequent assessments. One Bear Creek was sold in 2021 for $405,000, but the assessor's office valued it at $370,600 in 2022 and dropped that value to $349,900 in 2024. And 10 Bear Creek Drive was sold in 2022 for $475,000, but the assessed value was $360,000 in 2023 and was maintained in 2024 due to the age income freeze. Needless to say, when I received the notice that the assessor had assigned my home a value of $443,800 in 2024, which was a $123,800 increase from 2023, I felt that an error had occurred. I was confident that an error had occurred. And that disparity in the assessed value between my home and that of my neighbors was immediately recognized at the first level of review. The agents there that recognized this disparity and immediately offered a substantial, as much as they could, decrease in what the assessed value should be. But since that total still remained significantly above that of my neighbors, it was as much as they could do without further review, I sought the intermediate review. I proceeded, unfortunately, that review was negligible. I showed up for a scheduled appointment on Monday after the office had closed on the previous Friday. So they hastily arranged a telephone conference with someone who was unfamiliar with my case and basically just, do I have anything else to add? And didn't, it was not a review, in fact. And ultimately, the representative who was unfamiliar with my case, after that, a perfunctory affirmation of the original assessment resulted and nothing further. So that's why I'm here. And I'm here to ask you to correct what I believe was an error in the assignment of building value to my property. From the 2023 assessed value of $289,000, there's an $123,800 increase just in the assessed building value to $412 in 2024, or almost a 43% increase. And with no modifications and no upgrades, only routine maintenance since I acquired the property, no transfer to indicate that there was an increased market value, it's really hard to understand how this dramatic increase was warranted unless it was simply a mistake. And all the assessed values, and I went through every single assessed value in the villas, the values of all the homes with less than 2,700 feet. I sort of limited to that. Mine is less than 2,400, but I focused on those, and they were all adjusted by the assessor that year, some up, some down, and except for those that were frozen. Nothing like what happened to mine. And ultimately, the assessed building values range from 30,880 to 38,760, with the exception of mine, which was 44,380. And there was one other home that had been remodeled twice that had a greater value than that, but the others were ranging between 30 and 38, and mine is 44, and I'm the third smallest in the entire community and have a disadvantageous location compared to the rest. And in fact, the house that is most similar to mine, we were built, that house was completed a few months before mine was. We were built by the same contractor, 2 doors apart, and that house is 229 square feet larger than mine. That is 1 Bear Creek Drive. It has an assessed building value of $32,430, which is almost $12,000 less than mine. With these values in mind, I believe that the intent of the assessor might have been to increase the value of my less than 2,400 square foot home by 1,238 instead of 12,380, which would have made an assessed building value of 30,138 and a total assessed value of 33,238, which approaches the range for every other home in the villas that is less than 2,700 square feet. I recognize that there is the existence of an appraisal ordered by the commission, which values my property at $415,000, which is significantly less than what the assessor's value was. But the appraiser himself did acknowledge in there that the analysis of the comparable sales reflects significant variations between the sales and my property. I mean, there were properties within the villas, but they were larger and different and placed in a better location. Obviously, he attempted to compensate for those variations, but I continue to argue that the real comparables are the ones that were sold. And I understand, I think the appraiser has to pick comparables that were sold within a particular period of time. And, you know, there are limitations on what on what their standards are. But I've got 2 homes in my block that were sold very recently, and frankly, their assessed values by the assessor are not the same as what they were sold for also. So apparently, you know, although you say that it's dependent on market value, that doesn't seem to be the way the assessments are made. You know, based on what I told you about sales prices of 405 and then assessed at 370 and then reduced the next year to 349. At any rate, I still believe that the real comparables are those that I have identified, and that the appraised value, if it wasn't an error, if the assessor didn't make an error, then I think it raises some serious concerns about the methodology applied to the villas, which has not achieved the fair and uniform ad valorem taxation that I know is the goal of the commission, according to your mission statement. And I would say, as a final note, I mentioned this article in the Times-Picayune. You know, while you may well expect some inflationary increase to the home's assessed value, a front page article in the Times-Picayune, which I attached as Exhibit 1 of July 30th, 2023, the byline by Stephanie Regal asserts that housing prices fall across New Orleans as market activity slows to a trickle. And the article indicates that 2023 is shaping up to be the worst year for residential real estate in New Orleans in more than a decade. She attributes the well-documented reasons for the slowdowns. The higher interest rates have cut buyers' borrowing power in half over the past year, and insurance premiums have skyrocketed since dozens of insurers stopped writing policies in the state. And according to the reporting, these factors together have priced many buyers out of the market. And I can speak for our community's property values have certainly been impacted by these market factors, have also been impacted by the specter of the development of a 278-unit apartment complex on the Lower Coast, very fragile environment, whose infrastructure would certainly be strained if this apartment complex became a reality. And sales have been deferred, homes taken off the market while a determination is made as to whether this complex will move forward. And based on the market factors, as well as I think the aberration in the assessment of 5 Bear Creek indicate that is the basis for why I asked for an appropriate reduction in the assessed value of my home, a reduction that would result in a degree of uniformity in the assessed values for the villas of English Turn and provide confidence that assessments are fair and equitable within my neighborhood. And I do thank you for your attention and forgive the tediousness of the presentation because I felt that a lot of these details were relevant to my argument.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes. So the property was originally valued at $443,800. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. The tax commission performed an appraisal at $415,000. We performed a fee simple appraisal, which is different from our CAM evaluation. Our fee simple appraisal came out to be, sorry, I'm pulling it up right now, $475,000, which is higher than either the CAM evaluation or the tax commission staff appraisal value. I think the only issue that we have, we're kind of in the ballpark of the tax commission appraisal, is an adjustment that was made $25,000 based on the subject property backing up to an entrance of English Turn. Now, we provided a map in our appraisal that showed that comps 1 and 2 are also on the main road for English Turn. And if you were to remove the adjustment made, it would come out to 440,000. We're under 443,800. We're all in the same ballpark. And to further the transparency of the matter, we called the taxpayer and offered to settle for the tax commission's value. That was rejected. I would just like to note for the record that we provided in writing an objection to any exhibits because we were not provided any exhibits by the taxpayer. If the commission would like, I can address the allegations that were made during the hearing as far as the Times-Picayune article or anything else. But I don't think that is relevant to the situation, considering that we're all in the same ballpark.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Good morning, commissioners. Make sure I'm unmuted. Good morning, commissioners. I performed an appraisal on a property in an effort to value the fee simple interest of the property. Utilizing the sales comparison approach, I was able to research that development, which is English Turn. And English Turn is comprised of a number of different sections within the development. We were fortunate enough to find ample amount of sales in the villa section, which is a small gated section on the perimeter, near the perimeter of the development. But in our case, we were able to find 3 sales within the villa section. Those sales range from $499,000 to $517,000. We made some adjustments for location, site size, physical condition, and GLA differences. Arrived at an adjusted sales price range of $408,500 to $421,400. And based on that data, we concluded a value of $415,000. Of note is that location adjustment that the tax assessors mentioned. The subject property backs to Clubhouse Drive, which is the main thoroughfare for ingress and egress into development. And as the property owner stated, she does not have an 8-foot fence. She has a wrought iron fence. But anyway, she's just a couple of feet from this thoroughfare and subjected to a higher degree of noise and less pleasure in a covered patio than her neighbors within the villa section would enjoy. So although my comparables are in the same gated villa section of English Turn, it's just simply an apples to oranges comparison when you speak of location. So we felt like the location adjustment was warranted and we applied it. So again, we came up with a final value of $415,000, which is comprised of $31,000 land and $384,000 improvements.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the taxpayer, just to review, ma'am, and I apologize if I try to remember what was presented, but what I understood you to say was that as you were going through the appeals process prior to today,
Yes.
there was a representative from the assessor's office that made an offer for settlement.
Yes.
However, there was no follow-up for that to be successful. And is that
Right.
correct?
It is correct that I felt that I did not get an intermediate review, that a significant, they offered. And frankly, I mean, we talk about the assessment and the market value, but that is not necessarily reflected in the assessments, the assessed value. The assessor does not grab on to the market value or even necessarily the sales price and make that the assessed value. And that's where I see a huge discrepancy
I understand.
within
So,
my community.
so my question is, what was offered to you at that time?
They offered a $7,100 for the, that was the assessed, for the assessed value of, what was it? It was 40. My assessed value was, their assessed value for me was, what was it? 44,380. They offered 7,100 from that.
No. That's
So
incorrect.
reducing that by 7,100 is what you're saying?
Yes, that's what they suggested. So that would be 280. It would be,
The number that was offered was the tax commission staff appraisal of $415,000. We did not offer $378,000. The assessor's office offered the commission's appraisal of 415. It was rejected by the taxpayer. What she is referring to is I believe the board of review saying that she didn't get an intermediary. We have no control over the board of review. We did not offer anything. The only offer was for this appeal for the tax commission itself.
Yes, ma'am.
this, what I'm talking about, the $7,100, when I went to the assessor's office, the day after I received this, I went to the assessor's office with all of my papers and showing all of the comparables of what everyone in my neighborhood had, and how I had $123,800 increase was so beyond the pale of what anybody else in the neighborhood had. They recognized that immediately, sent me into someone else. I went to the Algiers courthouse, assessor's office, met with someone there, and they conferred and immediately offered me a $7,100 decrease. That was as far as they said they could go. And, but it still was much higher than anything that my neighbors had.
But since that time, did the assessor's office call you and offer you the tax commission's value of 415,000?
Yes, that is correct. He offered, but that was,
You rejected that
I
value?
rejected that because that
Okay.
was
Okay.
way higher.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any questions, additional questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, just for the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, taxpayer has represented that your assessment at 1 Bear Creek and 10 Bear Creek, I believe 10 has an age freeze, but I didn't think I understood that 1 does have an age freeze, but their assessed values are roughly in the neighborhood of what the taxpayer is requesting.
I don't have the particulars of 1 Bear Creek because I was not able to look into any exhibits provided by the taxpayer. We were not afforded that courtesy. I could tell you 1 Bear Creek, receiving a text from one of my colleagues, is a succession resale. So their sales price should have no reflection of what the assessment is. I can't really go into what I have not been able to review.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the commission?
Could I just say that I did provide, I did send them the New Orleans Assessor's Office a copy of my filing with you, which then when I heard that, they called to offer me this this proposal and said that they had not received my, any of my papers, I promptly went down and hand delivered them a copy a month in advance of this hearing, more than a month in advance of this hearing. I hand delivered a copy and have a stamped copy showing that it was received, that I delivered it. And in all of my filings, I have included a copy of the appraiser's property, what I got right from the appraiser's website of One Bear Creek, which is 2 doors away from me, as I said, built within a year of mine, and it was sold for 405, assessed at 370, and reduced to 349 the same year that mine was increased 123,000. It really simply was hard to fathom.
Okay, excuse me. So you're saying you have a stamped copy showing that the assessor's office received the document?
Yes, I do. A
I'd like
month,
to see that.
a month before, let's see. No, this came later because it may be in my other papers. No, I have my briefcase right there. I have everything. It may be here.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, while she's looking, just a quick question for Mr. Russell. When the taxpayer denied the 415,000,
Mhm.
was there any offer other than that was presented to her?
No, sir. We said that we would request our initial 443,000 that the board of you affirmed. But like I said, to make everything as transparent as possible, I wanted the commission to know we did offer or extend that offer to her.
It should be. But I'm looking, this is what I sent you all, and I went. They just wrote hand delivered on it with a date.
I'm not disputing, we just, once again.
Sure, I understand.
That's as office is saying one thing and the taxpayer is something different. We want to,
No.
Yeah, no worries.
It was a hand, no, it should, what I took, it was, a copy of the letter.
we're going to move on, ma'am. I'm not disputing what you're saying. We just wanted to see it if you had it handy.
And I
but
certainly
We're
did,
going
and
to,
I took a
ma'am,
copy.
we're going to move on. You can stop looking for it, ma'am. We're going to move on. Any questions from the commission? Additional questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept, the assessor's office agreeing to LTC, staff appraisal value, land 31,000, improvements 384,000, total of 415,000.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we'll take up the appeal of Mallory Lott versus Assessor L.G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-72215.
Commissioner, that Mr. Russell went to the restroom real quick, and I say Commissioner Frazier may have done the same. If you give us 1 second.
David, you want to wait for us or?
Yes.
Okay, sir, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Okay. I apologize. I believe I submitted documents for the board or the commission. But through a robust spam filter in my office, I did not get the email about providing it to the city. So I believe, y'all don't have anything, is that correct? Am I fair? Is that fair? Or do y'all have anything to look at it on my behalf? No? Okay. They do? Yeah, okay, you do have that. Okay, well, perfect. It'll help a little bit. So I thought I was gonna have to just talk through it, but I will talk through it. In summary, I'm gonna start off by saying it's our belief that the city of New Orleans Assessor's Office failed to apply fair, uniform, and consistent methods when assessing the building, strictly the building, improvement value of the subject properties, which is located at 819 Hidalgo Street. While the land values were assessed by the city's assessor's office were very uniform, consistent throughout the neighborhood at $25 per square foot, big important, per square foot, there's a significant disparity in the assessor's determined building improvement value of the subject property when compared on a per square foot basis to the assessed building improvement values and conditions of the surrounding properties. And to demonstrate this, to demonstrate the significant disparity in assessed improvement values, we did a comparison of the assessor's building improvement values on a per square basis for the entire 800 block. Make it simple, easy, 19 properties. And we did that without consideration to condition or whether it was post-Katrina new build or post-Katrina refurbishment. So obviously, as you guys know, we just went to the assessor's office, all 19 properties, grabbed the square footage for each of those on the building, have the assessor's building assessment value, and calculated it per square foot value. In doing that, the subject property was one of the highest calculated building value on the block at $180.06. It's actually the second highest. There was one higher at 818 Hidalgo at 196, the lowest being 106. The most important figure is the median building of the whole entire block, which was $135.49. And I'll refer to Exhibit 1 provided by the assessor's office, which is the taxpayer requested value of $130.49, which is the median value of that block. I'm going to continue on there. The subject property of 180 is 33% higher, $44.57 higher than the median building value of the entire block. Again, it's almost $45 higher than the median value. The median price of 135 of 800 of the entire block. If we use that value, we would come back to 144,700 to calculate the value, the building value of the subject property. To further point out the significant disparity in the building value, we also looked at just for an example, the property next door, 821 Hidalgo, exact same land area. Building area certainly larger, 54% higher. This property has had numerous renovations over the last 2 to 3 years, obviously in much better condition. Despite this, the building value as assessed by this New Orleans Assessor's Office, $130.17 compared to value we're talking about is $180, which is 49.89 per square foot higher, 38% higher. So when looking at that, obviously there's some big disparities. We'll go on to condition because when we went to the assessor's office and talked about how did we come up this value? They said, hey, we look at condition and we look at whether it's a pre-Katrina build, new build or refurbished. They indicated we were in an excellent condition and they indicated it was by a drive-by. So obviously no information about the real condition of the property besides a visual from the street. Just for background, the subject property was built in 1940. It's a post-Katrina rebuild. Numerous defects because of the age of the property, inherent in that: small closet, small rooms, one small bathroom, basic bathroom, no amenities, retrofit HVAC system, limited insulation, just to name a few. On top of that, we provided the city's assessor office with a property inspection report listing some very significant, in our opinion, deficiencies or defects to say, hey, this is really not an excellent condition property. Those things that we provided to them, whether showing the decks and walkways uneven due to subsidence, not a big deal. But we come to foundation structure, also due to subsidence, big differences there. Exterior siding and trim, age and needing replacement, roof age, uneven in certain places, past the useful life. Plumbing age, sagging, piping susceptible to clogs and leaks, subfloor damage from leaks. We we removed the major appliance, but still had subfloor damage. Limited insulation throughout the property. So with those noted deficiencies that we talked about, it clearly demonstrates this is not an excellent, I guess, condition property, as the city assessor said. In fact, you could almost go to the conclusion, maybe a little below average. We did put a fresh coat of paint on the exterior, but really that didn't change those defects or items that we talked about before. So another item, of the 19 properties we looked at, most of those are comprised of post-Katrina refurbished properties, homes in various conditions, but there's at least 3 new builds. Notably, all 3 of those new builds were assessed less than the subject property. So in conclusion, the median value price of $135.49 per square foot, as calculated on the entire 800 block of Hidalgo, contemplates that all properties of equal condition. Considering the age of our property, the condition, it could be argued the subject property should be lower than the $135.49 median price. The block, as I indicated, the block includes three new builds and various refurbished properties that are in better condition. Therefore, we're concluding that, or it is our contention that we consider that our asking of you guys, the tax commission, the reduction from our current 192,300, which is 180, to the 144,700, which is the 135.49. It's reasonable. It's a reasonable ask, and we believe you could actually ask for lower than that, given that. So the use of the median of 135 would be considered a fair, uniform, and consistent method, which is required to properly assess the property at 819.
New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office, pull up my form, was valued at $285,300. That was affirmed by the Board of Review. The tax commission did an appraisal that actually came out higher at $304. We performed a fee simple appraisal, which is different from our mass appraisal, that came out at $290. We requested that the commission affirm the Board of Review's value, that even though both appraisals came out higher, talked to the taxpayer, asked him if he would withdraw. He decided not to withdraw. We presented in writing an objection to exhibits because no exhibits were provided to our office. So I can't really contradict specific points in the taxpayer's argument. However, he's asking for a median price per square foot. That's not an appraisal practice. The median price per square foot on the block, in his own testimony, said that he didn't take into consideration condition or size. So if there's no size adjustment, no condition adjustment, you can't lump the entire thing together and just say, the average is this, I want to be that. We have 2 appraisals that are within 2% of the mass appraisal. So 3 full appraisals that use appraisal principles that come in at $285,000, $290,000, $304,000. we just don't feel that using a median price per square foot of an entire block without any adjustments would be warranted or acceptable. That's kind of where we're at. I do know one of my colleagues wrote something down, if I guess you guys saw. One of the comps that I can speak on is a double. So that would discredit the median approach as well, because you can't use a single versus a double versus a business versus an apartment complex. It should be the same properties. So that's kind of where we stand. We're asking the commission to affirm the Board of Views value because it's the lower value of the three appraisals.
Okay, thank you. LTC appraiser?
Good morning. I appraised the property at 819 Hidalgo Street at 304,000 with an improvement value of 211,000 and an undisputed land value of 93,000. All of my comps are roughly the same age, condition. They're within a quarter of a mile. We do have to consider or at least report on the prior sale if it's within 3 years. And in April 2021, it did sell for 285. That multi-listing, I went and I looked at it. It showed an excellent condition, but like Mr. Lott said, I looked at the pictures. It didn't appear to me to be in excellent condition. There were still a lot of outdated features, so I did bump it down to very good. The sale appeared arm's length in nature, so I felt like the 304 was kind of consistent with that prior sales price.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, just again, condition used by the assessor's office and for you as well, Ms. Palmer, just on the taxpayer's property in comparison to to the comps.
Oh, were you asking me or Russell?
Yes, it's both of you, I'm sorry. So Ms. Palmer, your condition rated of the taxpayer's property?
I put it in very good condition, because when I looked at the pictures on the multi-list, like I said, it seemed to be a post-Katrina update, but not all of the rooms were updated. The bathroom looked very dated to me. So I felt like very good was a fair condition to put the property in.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez?
We actually value the property in excellent condition. I think also based on that MLS listing with the photos, because we're not allowed to go inside the house. But ironically, we actually came up slightly lower than the very good condition, I think, to our adjustments. But we're all within like a couple of percentage points. So it's kind of a moot, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Questions from any other commissioner?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman. For the taxpayer, the commissioners was not allowed granted access to your property?
I certainly did. I don't think, I wasn't there, or my daughter who actually owns the property was not there when she did the appraisal. Certainly we didn't withhold that. We certainly would have liked it because as the information that we provided the assessor's office, I mean, they didn't take that in consideration. The things that I pointed out, the 6 or 7 items, and there were more, were not taken into consideration when to lower that value any. So we would enjoy them going in there, but they didn't ask for it really. I mean, I would have let them, certainly would have let them in.
Okay.
Can I make a comment, please? Just
If you're not going to repeat yourself, once again, we're just trying to
absolutely
move
would
it
not
along.
repeat
so-
myself. I want to just reply to the assessors. There are limited doubles on this block, so yeah, they may have a double too. But we were open to adjusting and looking at values. They didn't want to talk about that. That wasn't in their game plan. I think if they would have been adjusted, it'd been lower. I mean, this is a classic case of sale chasing by the assessor's office. I mean, it's at sales value when the rest of the properties are not.
I'm gonna stop you right there. We're not gonna have a commentary on sales chasing.
No, I'm
Speak
just
to-
saying, the
speak to-
point of that is that.
I'm gonna stop
that-
you, excuse me, I'm gonna stop you right there. It's not a classic case of sales chasing. We're not gonna discuss that. We're talking about the value of your property. That's not relative to what we're talking right now.
Right, the property did not consider the assessment values to be consistent throughout the neighborhood. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Orleans Parish assessment of 285,300. That's 93,000 for the land, 192,300 for the improvement.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Tammy M. Snyder versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23221-77073.
Okay. 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 Okay, so, I think there's, my main thing is my appraisal, this all started, in 2021, sorry. The appraisal that was done was used the incorrect square footage. And I've tried a few times to get this taken care of. And I'm not really sure. I even brought this to the last appeal at City Park, and it basically shows that I am paying $236 per square foot because it was in 2021 that they did it. My square footage is actually 2,422, and I have an actually document from that time that shows that they put the square footage at 3294. So it significantly raised my it basically nearly doubled my appraisal from 2020 to 2021. And this has been an ongoing thing that has happened, that each time I try to get it appraised, I try to get it appealed, they don't pay attention to this part of it, and they're not using the people that are on the same block as me. I am like, next door to me is the exact same layout house. It's a raised basement. They actually have a bigger square footage, 400 more square footage than me, and their land is bigger. And they still pay a lot less than me with their appraisals. If they would just use the people on my street, the house across from me is actually 3,600 square foot. And my appraisal was actually higher than that house initially in 2021. So this is an ongoing thing that they have reduced my appraisal, just like they've done everybody else because the appraisal is going down, but they're still using the appraisal from 2021 because I could just tell you right now, in 2020, my appraisal the building value was $305,400. The building value in 2021 was $517,500. And that's basically going from, I figured it out, it was basically my square footage in 2021 is $148.97 per square foot, and it went to $236.61 square foot. And I've never been able to get anybody to understand that. It's the basis of it it's right there in front of everybody.
Thank you. New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Yes. So the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office originally valued the property at $513,300, which was affirmed by the Board of Review. That was our mass appraisal valuation. This property is a single-family property located in North Fontainebleau area. We performed a fee simple appraisal on this property for the purposes of the hearing. It was forwarded to the commission as well as the taxpayer. It showed that we were high, that the revised valuation was $468,000, which we think is a more accurate indicator of value. I guess the only question that we have, or the only difference in valuation really between our appraisal and our revised appraisal and the tax commission staff appraisal is really conditioned. There's an average / fair condition, which we don't really have a average / fair. It's either average or it's fair, and then you make adjustments for the condition either way. The average / fair is not really something that we use or MLS uses. So I'm not sure where that came from. There's some photos in the appraisal that are kind of undated. One shows some issues with the stairwell, shows some subway tile in the bathroom, and then shows something that says floors resulting from shifting foundation. But the only thing that I would say to that is that there's no engineer's report that I see showing that there's damage from a shifting foundation. Neither myself as a licensed appraiser or Mr. Gillespie as the staff appraiser, as an engineer, and can really say that damages or not from a shifting foundation. It would be an expert in the area, such as the lifting company or foundation company, that could say that, or maybe a home inspector or an engineer. So I can't really say that it's from shifting foundation. It looks like it's possibly there may have been a floor furnace or something that was done. The only other thing I can say is that after 100 years in New Orleans, there's really not a single property that doesn't have some kind of shifting, because we're not built on solid ground. So yeah, the 515 is really high. We were at 468. He's at 400. We still have a little room for wiggle room, but we don't feel that we're really out of line.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Mark Gillespie with the Louisiana Tax Commission. I appraised the property located at 2616 Burdette Street. When I spoke with Ms. Schneider regarding the property, she indicated that the subject does have some shifting foundation issues, and she provided a photograph. Of course, I'm not an expert, but I relied on her word. So, and she provided a photograph showing such. And the property also has ongoing deferred maintenance and some outdated obsolescence as compared to the 3 comparable sales, which are all within a 3-block radius of the subject. They're all in North Fontainebleau. They are very similar to the subject. Appropriate adjustments were made to reflect the condition. I think if the subject were a little more updated, and if there were no foundation issues, which are shown in the photograph, I think it would be an average condition. But the average fair condition that we describe here is accurate in my opinion. I determined the fair market value to be $400,000, and let's see that the land value is $55,000, uncontested land value $55,100, and improvement value of $344,900.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the assessor's office. I appreciate the reduction from initial to what you're requesting now at 468,000. Where I'd like some explanation is in the comps that you're using. My simple approach was just to take the total of the 3 and divide it by 3 without understanding any weight to anyone in particular. And my math shows that your average of all those comps is 408, almost 409,000. So I don't understand the discrepancy between the 468 to the 409. So that's my question for you.
Okay. So what we do is we do a weighted average. We take the most comparable sale. We usually multiply that times 3. Take the second most comparable sale, multiply that times 2, then add the third comparable times 1, and then average by divide by 6 is usually a good weighted average. So you can not have a simple average or median for all the sales involved. That's kind of what we do. I'm trying to lean towards more of the most comparable property there. I will say that that if you were to do the 409, that is without weighting it, that would be similar to the taxpayer's initial request of the 405 and the commission's appraisal of 400. But like I said, we did a weighted average, and that's where ours came from.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say one thing? One of the comparables they put on is Sycamore Street. I mean, that house is obviously totally redone. That's the one that had the highest dollar per square foot. If you would knock that out, you would totally see that I'm more comparable to the other two houses that they use as comps. And one of them is actually in the Hearst, it's the Hurstville, which is a historic area.
Any more questions from the commission?
I have a question. This is to the Orleans Parish. You said that y'all have some more leeway from your 468. Would you like to share what that would be?
Yes, sir. I be able to come down slightly if we take a little bit less of a weight on that count number 3 and come in at, sorry, technology. 421,000, which is a substantial reduction from the initial valuation and a $40,000 valuation reduction from our revised appraisal. It's kind of in the middle of where we were and what she was asking for.
Okay.
If you'd like, I could give you the breakdown. It'd be 421 for the total with 55,100 for the land and 365,900 for the building.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the Orleans Parish's latest offer of 421,000 total, 55,100 for land, 365,900 for improvement.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you.
Next, we have the appeal of Timmy Nguyen versus Assessor Errol G. Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-75001.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Yes. Hi, my name is Tim Nguyen, and I'm owner of River Living Water Farm.
Can I ask you to speak up a little bit so everybody?
Okay. I'm Timmy Nguyen, and I'm an owner of Living Water, River Living Water Farm. We bought the property about 3 years ago, and it have a shed on it. The shed is very, very old. It's look like it's about to collapse, and there's no living. It was never built for living space. There's no bathroom, no sewer, no septic tank, no water. We use 20% of it for storage and the other 80% for chicken coop. So Orleans assessor came out and took a picture from the street about 400 feet away and saying that property worth 195,000. And I see, and then we had Louisiana State assessor came out. They actually came on the property and went in the building and took picture of it. And they assessed it at 19,000, about around 19,000. The building is infested with termites. They got snakes, rats. It's not livable. It's really hanging on the last string to collapse. And we're looking at that's a lot of jump, from the building where it can really collapse anytime. And I'm here today to really show y'all. They had pictures of the building on there. I don't know if you have it on your side. You don't. Oh, my first time. I didn't know. I'm sorry, but No, I have pictures on here. I have Orleans, pictures and, can I submit after? Yeah. No. Can I show you the pictures on here? Cause I have the appraiser of Orleans and the stakes of Louisiana. Yeah, I mean, the picture is clearly showing that the building is. Right. So you do have the Louisiana stakes appraiser that came in. Okay. But, yes, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's a shed that's, falling apart. And the building was built, I don't know, it's probably before the 1940, based on the material they used. There's no records that when the building was built or any kind of square foot anything. There's no bathroom, most of the building is gutted out. 80% of them is gutted out, and it's all the wood is all ate up by termites. And we probably gonna knock it down within like a year or something like that. So I mean, this is not fair for them to say it's 195,000 for something that's not livable.
Okay,
Yes, let's see. Let me pull up my form. All right. So we initially valued the property at $311,300. We did a revised appraisal, which is 325 even. Really, the main issue with this is the tax commission did have an appraisal for 150,000. They came up with the same land rate, but he has a $19,600 value for the building. Is that, yes, the building that he took a picture of, the 900 square foot shed, is completely gutted and horrible, deplorable condition. However, there's a 1,400 square foot house on the property, and in 2022, permit number 22-12559-new EWC, completed December 1st, 2022, there was a 5,000 square foot metal barn with a value of $112,350 constructed on the property with no contributory value put into the appraisal for either the barn or the house. So yes, the shed, 100% deplorable, but we couldn't settle because there's 3 buildings on there and there's only one in the staff's appraisal. So that's kind of where we're at.
There's 3 buildings, but one of them has collapsed within like a few months. And this one about to go too. The building that he says, the metal building, we still working on it. We're still closing the permits, we're still building it. But it's just also a barn where we can store, equipment and animals. It's a farm, so, it's not living space.
okay, thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Just one second. Yes, sir. Danny Blanchard, LTC appraiser. Did an appraisal on the property to determine its fair market value and fee simple interest. Visited the property. The tax bill, I inspected the improvements that's actually on the assessor's website, which is a 1,200 square foot fully depreciated or very heavily depreciated improvements. They are in the process of constructing a metal building towards the rear of the site, which was not considered in my valuation. Only the improvements that were cited on the tax bill were taken into consideration. So speaking to that, the property's heavily depreciated. Nearly all of it's used for storage, and that's how we valued it. There were no comparables of heavily depreciated 1,200 square dwelling. So we did simply a cost approach. We came in ironically at the same value for the land as the assessor, which is 50 cents a foot. And we used the cost approach analysis and arrived at a value of $19,500 for that 1,200 square foot site. That's again, that's posted on the assessor's website.
Mr. Blanchard, let me
Combined with the land value, we came up with a total value of $150,200.
Danny, I'm sorry. Just want to
Yes.
clarify, So the barn being built and the house on the property was not part of your appraisal?
The barn, the metal barn at the rear of the site, there, that was under construction, so that's correct. It's not cited on the assessor's website, so I did not include that in the appraisal. And the only thing that was included was the improvements that are cited on the assessor's website, and that's that 1,200 square foot fully depreciated structure that you have pictures of in the appraisal.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just to clarify that, so as I appreciate it, the 1,200 square feet of improvements is the unit that's heavily depreciated, and that is what the assessor, so I guess my question is for the assessor's office. Your website, what you're assessing is 1,200 square feet for improvements.
No, sir. The one building has 1,200 square feet in it, but there is contributory value that's not shown on our website for value of, the building value is made up of the 1,200 for the one building, plus the square footage of the second building, plus the metal, metal barn in the back. And just to kind of clarify, we did a field inspection June 22nd, 2023, and that's where we're getting our value from. We actually went on the property. One of our field inspectors went there, showing that there's all the three buildings. There's a flyover you can do from Google from 2024 that shows the three buildings, and the pictometry website from our website, the pictometry photos from our website taken in 2023 also show the three buildings. So there is contributory value on our website. It's just not explicitly stated. We have a square footage of the main building, but we don't have the outbuildings in there, if that makes sense.
So what is the square footage of the contributory building?
So the square footage is a 900 square foot contributory shed, and then there is a 5,000 square foot contributory metal barn that was done with the permit of 112,000. Sorry, I just closed it out. $112,350. That estimated completion date was December 1st, 2022, per the city's website. If we take into consideration, let me pull this up, the $16 a square foot value that Mr. Blanchard has put on the one building and add the second building to it, for it being deplorable, would come out to $36,800. If you take the $20 a square foot, which is considerably less than what metal barns are selling, can be constructed for, which is $35 a square foot, you lower that down to $20 a square foot, that's $100,000. That would be building value of $136,800. And then if you were to take our land rate of $137,700, that would be $267,500. I think that would be a fair value if you want to take all things considered, because there's no contributory value in Mr. Blanton's appraisal for the other two outbuildings.
Can I say something?
So,
When Mr. Blanchard came, there's only two buildings, metal building and the shed that we were looking at. The other building had knocked down, the wind knocked it down about a year ago already. They took picture from the street and they go by the satellite. I mean, I invite them to come on the property and actually go into the property and see how much this really worth it. When Ms. Blanchard put a number on there, he put it 19,000. Well, really, there's no value to it. It's falling apart. We're gonna knock it down soon. So for them to, make us pay 195,000 in tax, it's not fair.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of numbers being thrown around. So going back to the assessor's office, New Orleans Safety and Permit issued a permit for building two buildings.
Building, to
with,
build one building,
to build
sorry.
one building?
Yes, sir.
And that value was about
Uh,
112,000
$112,349.
of what the permit was issued for, and the taxpayer was assessed a
Yes,
fee for that.
yes,
So, so you're claiming that there's the shed in one building got knocked down.
Yes, sir.
What is the square footage of the remaining structure outside of the shed? And
Which
was
one?
that, well, you said there's only two now.
This one shed, this the one probably you see on the
So
pictures,
the
and the
one
other
that-
one is knocked down already. There's nothing left on it.
The one that you sought a permit to construct?
The metal building,
Yes.
the metal building, we're still working on it right now. We're still building. It's about 50 by 100, so about 5,000 square foot metal build barns. But this is accessory building. It's not really part of any living space or anything like that.
So it remains under construction.
Yes, sir. And they access on this building only. This I wouldn't call it building, but it's just shed. But
Mr. Blanchard, a question for you and your visual of the property and noting the structure that's under construction. Do you confirm that?
Yes, sir. It was not completed at the time of the inspection. From the exterior, I could see that it was not, in all candor, I did not go through the inside, but it was not completed at the time of my inspection. Again, I was focused only on the improvements that are cited on the assessor's website, which is the heavily depreciated structure at the front of the site.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, one more question. So for the city, once construction is complete, is my understanding, there's a certificate of occupancy to certify that everything has been done in accordance with the permitting.
yes,
And it's at that time, then that property cannot be occupied. Is that correct?
yes. A certificate of occupancy is obtained for a taxpayer for a residential property or a living area for them to live in when they get electricity and utilities to the property.
So is it at that time that the assessment gets modified for that structure?
That is correct. That is usually how we operate. We do not have the permits, and the only thing I was able to see was the estimated completion date from the city permit department, which was 12/1/22. We don't have a certificate of occupancy on file because we do not have access to that. So I did as much digging as I could, and that's all I could find.
I have a question for the taxpayer. Are you using the metal building today?
we still working on it.
Or-
We have some equipments in there. Yes, sir. Yes, but right. But there's no power, no water hookup, nothing like that.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions? Hearing none?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. Taking in consideration, we're going back to a 2023 value as of January 1. That's what we're dealing with today. I'm on the value of 150,300, the LTC value. That's 130,700 for the land, 19,600 for the improvement. Knowing that the building would go on, in 24, but we're taking care of the 23. And seeing how the permit wasn't final, we don't have no evidence of it being final as of 23. That's why I'm going this route.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
It's to my knowledge, we don't have any more taxpayers here. All right.
Thank you.
So the next appeal we'll take up is the appeal of Remalex Developments versus Assessor Eldridge Williams in the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-71192. And please note that this is an appeal of Assessor Williams.
New Orleans Assessor's Office?
Yes, sir. So this is 192.
My apologies. Could we, Ms. Banks, could you just give the property location?
It's located on 2604 Bank Street. That's docket number 23-221-71192.
Thank you.
I'll try to keep this really brief, no more than an hour, since this is our appeal. The property was demolished in 2018. The land was then purchased for $135,000 in 2021, and it was newly constructed in 2022 with a certificate of occupancy of 8/2/22. The applicant noted in the appeal, the construction application, that it was intended use as short-term rental. We did a sales comparison approach on the property, and it came out at, I'm sorry, the original valuation was $511,600. That was reduced significantly by the Board of Review with no indication of why they did. The tax commission did an appraisal of the property, came out at $450,000 for a sales comparison approach. There is a typo in there where he says it is $435,000 on one page and $450 on the other page. I think the intention was $450 because that's what the sales comparison approach states. So I think that was just a typo. We did a fee simple appraisal on the property. That came out at $519,000. I called the taxpayer in, just to keep everything as transparent as possible. I called the taxpayer, offered to settle the commission's value, $450,000. I had a verbal agreement. I haven't heard back from the taxpayer since.
Thank you. Can we hear from the LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. George Wallace, Louisiana Tax Commission. I did appraise the property. There was an uncontested land value of $37,500. I used the sales comparison approach to value. Actually, my typo was, it stated $450 on page 4, but actually it's $435 was my final value conclusion. That'd be $397,500 to the improvements and $37,500 to the land.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Hearing none,
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the assessor's reduced value of $450,000 in total. Land value of $37,500, improvement of $412,500.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Caitlin Papso versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76001.
Okay, New Orleans Assessor's Office.
Yes, sir. With this one, I spoke to the taxpayer. We had an agreement for $750,000. I sent her a settlement offer. I haven't heard back from her. She is in France, so she's probably why it didn't get back to me, but she did verbally agree to the $750, and that's why I sent the offer out.
So you're willing to accept the LTC appraiser?
Yes.
City is. Any questions for the LTC appraiser? Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion to accept the Orleans Parish Assessor and LTC appraisal, $130,000, $300,000 on the land, $618,700 improvements, total of $750,000.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Next, we have the appeal of Donald J. Costello versus Assessor L.G. Williams and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76179.
New Orleans Assessor.
Yes, sir. This property was valued at $627,900. It was affirmed by the Board of Review. The tax commission came in a value of $635,000, which is higher than the value. I called the taxpayer to see if he would withdraw. He never responded. We did a fee simple appraisal. It came in at $674,500. We're good with either one.
LTC tax appraiser.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Joshua Laverne, LTC appraiser, inspected and appraised the property at 4424 Constance, utilizing excuse me, the sales comparison approach. That approach produced a value of 635,243 to the land, 392,000 to the improvement.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? Here,
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the parish assessor's request, total of 627,900, 243,000 for land, 384,900 for improvements.
we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
All right, we have our last appeal of the day is the appeal of Assessor Earl G. Williams versus Brian Faulkner versus and the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 23-221-76221.
Russell?
Yes, sir. So we initially valued the property at 735,000. The Board of Review made a substantial reduction to 585,000, which is actually lower than the taxpayer's request. The taxpayer initially required 600,000 or requested 600,000. We performed a fee simple appraisal of the property, and that came in at 717,000. I think the main issue is the Board of Review used the ruling for a previous quadrennial, which is not what they should have done. So that's why we filed the appeal. We have a couple of issues with the appraisal performed by the commission. It's less than the actual Board of Review's rule. I'm sorry, the Board of Review's value, which was the commission's ruling from 4 years ago, and the taxpayer's request. There's, as I was saying earlier, it would rear its ugly head. This property sold in 16, and I'm not saying that it applies to the actual property itself, because that's way out of the lien date, in excellent condition for 694,000. The reason why I bring that up is in the MLS disclosures, it states that there's a guest quarters for 366 square feet, a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom guest quarter, and that its big selling point is that it's on the parade route in New Orleans, the heart of Mardi Gras parades. It was completely renovated in 2023. The permit for the city of New Orleans was 23-00164-RNVS. The work value was estimated at $247,451 in February 22nd of 2023, which is 1 month past the lien date. The scope of work in the renovation of the existing single-family home is a relocation and renovation of the kitchen, living room, dining room, half bath. Work includes, but is not limited to, new framing, interior and exterior finishes, interior partitions, millwork, paint throughout. New mechanical, electrical, and plumbing are also required as per the renovation to raise the AC unit to BFE or higher. The affected square footage was 2,250 square feet. We have 2,247 square feet. So obviously this was a complete gut renovation in 2023. The appraisal performed by the commission, we don't think the Comp 1 4936 Coliseum should be included because it's a multifamily. You can't really use multifamilies and compare them to single families. It has both a multifamily and a single family in MLS, if I'm not mistaken. However, there's two meters in the photo, which shows that there's 2 units. The description in the MLS says that it's a raised double shotgun, which has the potential as a large single-family home. So it is a double that could be made into a single, but it's not a single, so it should not be in the appraisal. The comp at 1418 Bordeaux, there's no adjustment made for the guest cottage. The details in MLS say that it's a fixer-upper. There's no adjustment made for it not being on the parade route. There is a high premium for properties that are on the parade route versus properties that are not on a parade route. Now, in all due respect to take up for the tax commission appraiser, what he could not know is that the property is exempt and was purchased by an exempt foundation, so it's not an arm's length transaction. He would not be able to see that in MLS. We know that because we have access to our records. So that is not an arm's length transaction. He'd have no way of knowing that. And comp 3, 4100 Laurel, there's no adjustment for the guest cottage. It's not in the neighborhood, and there's no adjustment for being on the parade route. I think with all that and considered, the fact that it has a separate living unit that could be used like a mother-in-law suite. It's on the parade route, and there was a complete gut renovation of the property in 2023. We think the revised value of 717,000 with a land rate of 205,900 and a building value of 511,100 is more than fair for this property.
Thank you. LTC appraiser?
Yes, sir. Joshua Laverne again, LTC appraiser. Inspected and appraised the property at 804 Napoleon Avenue, utilizing the sales comparison approach. That approach produced a value of 600,000 with 205,900 attributed to the land and 394,100 to the improvement. I would also note that I would have no knowledge of, unless the taxpayer would tell me that it was gutted and completely renovated, I would have no knowledge of that. So had I known that, it could impact my approach.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. This is for the parish assessor. Mr. Russell, so you're telling me that by it being on a parade route, that's gonna give more value to the property itself?
Yes, it should give more property value to the property itself. It's highly desirable to be on the parade route than being, mid-city or the West Bank or another part of the city.
Okay, and the comparables that you had, were they also on the parade route?
The comparables that we have, let me pull them up. I don't have a notation of them not being in or being in. I did not perform the appraisal myself, so I'd have no way of noting. I could speculate if you'd like, but I can't really.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
So, Mr. Alvarez, just to confirm, this permit was issued, construction was completed, and the permit was for an excess of 200,000.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the assessor's request for a total of 717,000, land of 205,900, improvements 511,100.
We have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted.
Please note that the remainder of our agenda has either been settled or withdrawn.
Thank you. Since there are no other matters to come before the commission, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, I call a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion is adopted. We are adjourned at 11:16 a.m.